Buongiorno a tutti! Welcome to Milan Design Week. When you witness something extraordinary, this extraordinary becomes part of your life. What you fill your mind with becomes your reality. So I hope this video not only nurture your vision and inspire you to create your gorgeous home, but you can learn how to become number one in your industry. So let's get started with Henge. When I design spaces, I love rich textures, bold forms, and materiality. Henge is all about it. When we see beauty around us, when we live in sophisticated spaces, when we can touch precious finishes, it energizes us. It empowers us to make different decisions and improve our well-being. And when we are in such energy-rich state, incredible opportunities coming out of nowhere. Loves, have you ever seen a table like this? Look at this shade of travertine legs. Honestly, feels like it was made for my soul. This company is such a powerful example. If you carry a vision of yourself as a hero, even before the world sees it, if you stay committed and want to make a real contribution to humanity, you will definitely succeed. By the way, if you're curious about the price for the kitchens, because of the rare stones and unique materials, costs range from $400,000 to $800,000. I'm fascinated by this raw and rigorous combination of metal and marble. Girls, I can already see this in my future home. For lunch between meetings, I went to this beautiful Ralph Lauren restaurant, and this garden feels like slow summer afternoon at your grandmother's place. Let's walk to the next place, which is Casa Gessi. Here is where it gets juicy. Imagine your quiet morning and you turn in this marble piece of art. It brings so much peace to my heart. When I touch all of these incredible surfaces, it grounds me, and energy shifts so high. I would be very grateful for your recommendation in the comments. How do you take care of your well-being? The vibe is vibing. I don't eat this late, but strolling around and watch beautiful people is pure joy. Now I'm going to take you to Poliform. One of the most fulfilling parts of my job is making people happy. There is nothing better than create a space and seeing people hosting party, laughing and having fun there. That's why I'm completely obsessed with Poliform wall system. It features wall panels in both fabric and wood veneer. They bring a seamless flow across walls, partitions, and wardrobe bags. It means you don't see separation and visible breaks. These veneered panels are crafted with fine walnut and speckled oak finishes, combined with minimalist profiles in soft matte tones. Coverings in linen fabrics not only create softened acoustics, but bring a feeling of cozy home. They embrace you in the most gentle way. They give you that quiet sense of safety, where your whole body knows, I'm home, I can finally exhale. Dears, I hope you find this video inspiring. The second part, featuring Molteni, Louis Vuitton and other luxury brands, is coming soon. Now, I'm thrilled to share one of the most moving conversations in my life. Bjarke Ingels, an extraordinary visionary, opened up about the secret how to create genius lotsy, a sense of place, and how to design authentic architecture rather than replicating Dubai in every city. His powerful experience on overcoming challenges and rising to the top was pure gold.
It's proven that you can design and build a building, and it's almost impossible to break in. And of course, we ended up working very long hours. And after a year, like after 6 months, we won our first commission in an open competition. We then assembled a team And, I was working constantly and I was paying all of the fees in salaries for our employees. So me and my partner, Julien, we had an election in all the municipalities of Denmark, and the new mayor canceled the project. And that happened a few times. We did the groundbreaking of the National Library of Kazakhstan. And after 1 year of construction, I had 6 people sitting in Astana. A Turkish contractor comes in and suggests that he can do it, faster, better, cheaper with Norman Foster. And they end up building a Foster library on our foundations. And I could go on. It kept happening. And in those moments, and sometimes before I started my first company plot, I went on a holiday to Koh Phi in Thailand. This little group of islands. And I got my diver's license there. And my diving instructor was an Australian man who had married a beautiful woman from the islands. And he was going on dives twice a day. He was having a lovely life. She was living in paradise. And he was clearly not very stressed. And he clearly had a very good life. And I already had an advanced diver's license. So I always kept reminding me that if everything goes wrong and we go totally bankrupt, I'm sure I can borrow 2,000 euros from my parents. I can go to Koh Phi. I can become a diving instructor, and I can live one of the happiest lives that's even achievable. So if I choose to not do that, it's because even though it feels hard, I would rather do what I'm doing right now than what I know is amazing. So somehow having that moment, but every time that I was tempted to say, fuck it, I could offer myself, would you then? Well, okay, is it time to go to Koh Phi and become a diving instructor? And there's okay, let's give it one more shot. And then I know, and because I know being a diving instructor at Koh Phi is incredible, what I'm doing must be more incredible, even if it feels a little bit tough. And I know some of them still teach, so you can always go and get the same education as I got. But again, you don't have to try to learn it alone. You would rather, every time something really speaks to you, in a way, allow yourself to fall in love. And when you fall in love with something, use that passion, love, to dive into it and really go deep in. Really try to find out what it is about this particular work or architect or approach that speaks to you. And maybe try to find out where it came from. And in that sense, I would describe my own journey as a kind of serial monogamy of architecture. That I would fall in love with the work of a specific architect. And I would try to find everything that I could. And I think one resource that I liked a lot was Enclokis, because they have these long interviews and long essays with a lot of footnotes. And also they have all the drawings. So you can study the drawings quite well. So you can really understand exactly what the projects are. But you can also find the footnotes. And I would find all the footnotes. And I would look up the books by the people, the philosophers, the scientists, the other architects, the artists that they were referencing. So you could say my curriculum became reverse engineering from those people whose work I was mostly fascinated about. And at some point, by going deep, you also come to a moment. You can almost say in a sort of hermeneutic sense that this kind of idea of the hermeneutic mind that has so many touch points that it's hard to know exactly where it's rooted, because now it's hanging on the wall in so many places. But when you, at some point, you come to an axiomatic assumption, yes, that if you question that assumption, what Nietzsche would call philosophizing with a hammer, you hammer on the surface to see if there's something underneath. And when you hammer on that and you start questioning that assumption, then and suddenly maybe this work doesn't really speak to you in the same way anymore. But happily, you have now found something else that you are curious about. And I think that is that proved to be a very enjoyable way to study architecture. And at least it meant that when I finished architecture school, I kind of knew exactly what I wanted to do. And maybe lastly, the only job I applied for was working for Rem Koolhaas, who I would say to this day is the most significant architect of the 21st century. And in a way, by working for him for a year and a half, when I felt that my when I felt that my trajectory within the environment of gourmet had come to a logical conclusion, I had already worked for my favorite architect on earth. So to work for anyone else would be, you're going backwards. So the only thing left was actually to try to do it. And Julian and I decided to try to do it on our own. And because we did it so early, and because we didn't even have girlfriends and not even children, we had no expenses. So we could live two people in a 45 square meter apartment that would be bedroom, kitchen, and office. And that meant that we could just do open competitions because we didn't have any expenses. And eventually that allowed us to win some work in an open competition and start an actual office. So so maybe that would be an aggregate answer, like always pursue what you have love for, because that gives you more power than any other motivation. And then secondly, try to start doing it before you before you have too expensive lifestyle, because then then it's going to be hard to fund your own office for the first couple of years. But it ties back to this idea of hedonistic sustainability, the idea that the sustainable city or building not only is better for the environment, but can also be more enjoyable for the people that live there. And again, I like to remind people that maybe first of all, there's a good graph that looks at the energy source of humanity over the last 200 years. And you can see 200 years ago, we were basically burning wood. And then we discover coal and oil and natural gas. And we get so much more energy. And even today, renewables is a relatively small part. Between 10 and 20%, it's of course going up. But then you take the next graph and you look at life expectancy on every continent. And you can see completely coinciding that the second we get access to more energy, we start living more healthy and longer. And I like to remind ourselves that the only things in the world that don't use energy are dead things. The very definition of life is the ability to harvest energy from the environment and use that energy to resist entropy, to maintain a constant state, to grow and evolve. So that's all life is about. So in that sense, using energy is good. Wasting it is, of course, silly, and we should minimize that. And there's ways of doing it. And then also, every time, you can say when we started burning coal, we were already burning wood. So smoke was like a part of everyday life. So burning coal wasn't necessarily a bad thing in the beginning, but because we got so good at it, it started becoming a problem. The same with oil and natural gas, etc. And you can say that cities like London and New York at the turn of the between the 19th and the 20th century were drowning in horse shit because there were so many horses in the cities and that you had like empty lots that had become mountains of horse shit. People were dying because a bee would sting a horse and it goes crazy and runs down children. So somehow there was this ecological disaster of horses and we got saved by the car. But then of course the car got so popular that it became a problem. And so we just have to remember that each invention isn't bad. It's often a great solution to an even bigger problem. But then once it becomes excessive, so chocolate is good. It's even healthy, but too much chocolate can be a problem. And I think what we have, the possibility we have now, and maybe the last piece of the puzzle is we have to remember that the standard solution isn't the standard solution because it's bad. It's the standard solution because it's actually very good at achieving a certain goal in a very effective way. So I think what we try to do is to say that like one typical standard solution is the generic housing block from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s in the outskirts of our cities. And it's because we were maybe prioritizing morning and evening sunlight. So they face east-west. Something you can achieve with one elevator, so maybe it's 12 floors. And then the distance to the next one to allow daylight. And then, but it doesn't say anything about the quality of life between the buildings. It doesn't say anything about the microclimate of wind or sun. It doesn't say anything about the social composition of the neighborhood. It doesn't say anything about the programmatic diversity of living and working, so you can have a lively neighborhood 24/7, and so on and so on and so on. So what we try to do is to really understand why does the standard solution look the way it does? What is it good at solving for? And then we try to say, are there things it's not solving for that are also important and that the client and the city can also agree is important? And we try to pile on that. So in a way, by making the problem more difficult to solve, suddenly the standard solution doesn't solve it anymore. And we have to come up with a new solution that necessarily looks different because it's solving a different problem. So in a way, instead of saying that the clients, the developers, the city planners are dumb, they're quite smart, but they're just solving for one thing. Maybe we can help them solve for more. And ironically, by making, because the hardest thing to solve is to beat the standard solution at its own game. Because it became the standard because it was so good at it. But if you can change the game slightly, suddenly by solving a harder problem, it becomes easier to beat the standard solution.